This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
We'll talk here with Mike Irwin from Pig Trail Nation. This is while Sam Pittman is at his Monday afternoon press conference, and I'm sure there's a lot of interesting questions and answers going on. Mike, good afternoon. How are you today?
Doing good. How are you?
We're all right, man. We're all right. Bummer of a loss on Saturday to BYU. When you look at what's coming up ahead for Arkansas, a lot of question marks. What'd you think of the loss?
Well, obviously the penalties killed him. I'm not sure I've ever seen a game with that many momentum changes. You got 14-0 by Arkansas, then you got 21-0 bounce back by BYU, then 17-0 by Arkansas, then 17-0 by BYU. It was just back and forth. It's like somebody had a switch and they were turning each team on and off. A short field really was the problem for Arkansas. When you gave BYU a short field, they scored. When you had them backed up, they didn't move the ball very well. So there was an issue there, but a lot of it was the penalties, and there's no question some of those penalties were legit. But I've gone back and looked because I've read what some of the fans have said, and this Big 12 crew overlooked a lot of holding on the part of BYU. And then there were these mystery calls. Probably the worst one I saw was the roughing the passer call on Greer. I mean, my goodness. He's coming in there. He's about ready to tank this quarterback. The guy gets the ball off just over his head. He slows, puts his hands down, bounces off his chest with his hands, and the guy takes 2 steps backward, doesn't leave his feet, and that's roughing the passer? Are you serious?
Mike, that's how they draw it up. Mike, when they're going to show film on exactly what to do, I'm with you, Mike. That was one of the worst calls. I mean, that's textbook on how he stopped and put his hands up, and they called that flag. That was bogus.
Yeah, and to me, guys, the answer, and I'm not Eurocheck, I don't know how they work this out, but if you play a non-conference game, to me, you need a referee crew from a conference not involved. Like you could have an ACC crew or a Big Ten crew or whatever, but not somebody from the Big 12. They just did a terrible job. There was a pick play called on it was on Haas.
Dylan Haas, yeah, or Luke.
Yeah, and so Luke. I think it's. I've gone back and forth on this, guys. I'm told it's has. And the person said, think has been. And I'm going, I don't want to think has been. He's just got here. But that's the way he said it. Pronounce it has. But anyway, whatever. I thought that was a bad call. The excessive celebration. The explanation Pittman said he got was that some of the players looked like they were trying to go up into the stands. What? Seriously? I don't think anybody saw that. So it was pretty weird.
That final drive, do you think the only thing – I thought KJ was going to take us down and score, Mike. Do you think it was just the penalties? When they knew that we were going to pass the ball, we just didn't give him much time?
Yeah, they were able to just go right after him. And it was a desperation thing. And, I think that's where they got a bunch of the holding calls, and that's a little bit unfair. They're in a bad situation, but might have been one offsides penalty there too. Sam Pittman just said in his press conference, if we have half the number of penalties that we had in that game, we win. So he's basically saying we don't eliminate them, but we cut them back. He also said that they're probably going to move KJ around a little bit more in the offense to help the O-line. When you look at all this and what's transpired, people are criticizing us in the media as if we were just standing there all during August watching everything they did. Well, we didn't see a lot of this stuff, and so we're seeing it for the first time just like they are. But clearly, when you bring in a new offensive coordinator with a new system, everybody has to learn that system. And to me, that's where, if you look at what's going on the defensive side of the ball, they've picked that up well. There's no question the secondary's better. The D-line is better. They probably should bring more blitz pressure, and I think maybe they will. But there's been a clear improvement on the defense. They've gone backwards offensively. And I think KJ is more restricted, and that's not his thing. He's an improviser, and he's more restricted now. And so we may see them loosen him up a little bit in that respect, just to try and help out the offensive linemen. Somebody made the point on Facebook. I was reading everything I could read from the fans trying to gauge where they were at. And amid all the madness, fire this guy, fire that guy, everyone's terrible, a guy made a point. He said, you recruit these offensive linemen for three years to be in an RPO system, and now they're not. And you just can't expect an immediate adjustment. So maybe there's something to that. I don't know. They've had some injuries, too, had to move some people around. The issue is people are assuming if you lost to BYU, you're now going to lose every SEC game. And you're not looking at that the right way. The entire SEC has been up and down, not just Arkansas. I mean, you had LSU up, LSU down. You know, you had South Carolina down, then back up. You've had A&M up, then A&M down, then A&M back again. So I'm not ready to assume that Arkansas is about to do a 180 or continue where they are, going backwards and backwards and backwards, just because SEC play has started. I mean, BYU might definitely be able to beat a lot of other SEC teams. We've certainly seen stuff like that so far.
Well, they have 4 wins in SEC towns. You know, that put that up on the broadcast. So it's not that this is the only place where BYU has won a game in this conference, and it's not to say that, you know, you should accept it or anything. But I wonder a little bit about, it's like you're talking about bringing in a new coordinator, and you have, outside of Josh Braun, players that have been with the program, at least for a year, even if you're a redshirted like Andrew Chamblee or you're a sophomore like Patrick Kudus. They didn't bring any tackles in from the transfer portal. And that I'm guessing as to why. Maybe they went after some tackles. Nobody came to Arkansas. Or maybe the thought was, we're going to be just fine with who we have there, with Kudus and either Manuel or Chamblee. Maybe Tykees Crawford might get in over at right tackle. I'm not sure how they view Crawford right now. From what I heard Sam Pittman talk about after the game on Saturday, it's like, this is just sort of how you're going to play throughout the year, right? You need help. The tackles are going to need help from running backs, from tight ends. I don't think they were planning on that this year. I think they expected that Kudus and either Manuel or Chamblee would be really good at tackle. And it's not to say that they won't be. It's just over for the first 3 games this year, it hasn't been what was expected.
Well, and again, we've all got our own opinions, and fans certainly do. But when I look at it, I see 3 straight opponents all doing the same thing, all loading up to stop your run, and I'm just mystified by the play calling. I mean, he should be targeted more. Every time they throw the ball to him, he's open. So why are you throwing it to him twice? I'd target him 8 times. What about Satania? A kid with that kind of speed, I'd line him up at least every other series of downs. I'd line him up on the edge and have him run a flag route. Just take off. I mean, with his speed, he's got to take a cornerback and a safety with him. Otherwise, he's going to score. So if you pull people out of an area with a guy that has that kind of speed, you can float other receivers into that area. And instead, what we're seeing is run on first down, run on second down. Oh, we got to throw on 3rd and 8. That's just not the offense that I envisioned when I was thinking about all this stuff last spring and even all through the summer.
Yeah, we got to be better on 3rd down. You know, some positives, Mike, when you look at this, I didn't see any quit out there. And what about this defense? Do you think this defense is good enough to sustain us these next few games? And are we still going to get to 6-7 wins this year?
Well, it's possible. I think it's going to be tough. But part of the defense is having an offense that doesn't keep you on the field all the time or doesn't give up the ball to the other team with bad field position. I assume they're going to get better punting. That was a real weird thing where back-to-back punts went just a few yards. So I don't expect to see that again. I'm not sure what Pittman will do in terms of 4th and short anymore. When everybody debates that, should KJ have come up under center? Do you give the ball to a bigger back and all that? To me, the question is, why don't you punt it? You're at midfield. You got a lead. You got a 10-point lead. You don't need to get that first down to take a risk like that. So does this change his attitude toward that? I don't know. Football is all about learning lessons from game. I've always heard you learn more from a loss than you do from a win. So we'll see what they learn from this game.
Yeah, and what I'm learning is I'd like to get Satania the ball a little bit more often. I like what I've seen from Armstrong. I think Tesla had some trouble getting open against BYU. Contested catches, it looks like he's great, but he may have some defenders on him this year. Jaden Wilson's had trouble with some drops. I don't see the risk for getting Satania out there a little bit more often. Put him in
Jaden Wilson's role. Could you see him running those routes? Like, yeah, I could see that. I think Satania need to find a way to get, because he's so fast. If you can find a way to get him the ball in space, if he makes you miss, you're not going to catch the kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And then even just the threat of him being out there, an opposing secondary is crazy.
You're right.
It's going to affect them because they know the speed he's got. So he's a threat every time he lines up on the edge.
Do you sense? The fans are frustrated that it's Sam's fourth year, and you're looking for answers on the offensive line. I think everybody kind of expected that Sam Pittman was brought in specifically so that this would be a good line of scrimmage team. And I think at times over the first 3 years, they really were, especially year 2 and 9 wins. That was a really good line of scrimmage team, probably the best offensive line that Sam has had. Again, it's only 3 weeks into this season, but the line, it feels like it's taken a step back. He's got to be frustrated with that too. And I think that might have shown itself a little bit in Saturday's press conference. Either that, or I know he was annoyed with the questions. I'm just not sure if the reporters got an answer to the question about why do you have him behind, taking the snap from shotgun. But I can see the frustration from Sam about the offensive line. I'm assuming he would have thought that in his fourth year you'd have an offensive line, not necessarily dominating, but it would be one of the strengths of the team.
It's going to be interesting to see if he gets involved some in practice this week. I don't expect him to take over completely. I saw Joe Kynes try to do that when he was an interim head coach, be the defensive coordinator and the head coach. It didn't work. It's a bad idea. But you might see him more involved over there. I will say one thing, and a lot of fans are going to poo-poo this, but the running game wasn't terrible in this game. They were okay. The problem was the penalties. You take those penalties away, and then suddenly this effort this last week looks a lot better. So that, to me, is the issue rather than they just can't run block or they just can't pass block. Stop holding, Stop the penalties, and, you had 170 yards rushing. You might want over 200, but you're sort of getting there. Just don't hurt yourself.
Does this kind of, what we saw against BYU, does that kind of fit into just what we've seen overall from the SEC in these first 4 weeks? And I'm counting week 0. It's just really surprising how the SEC went from being the most dominant league in college football, and it's not even close, to right now, man, it's pretty obvious. The league is down, and it's a lot farther down than anybody would have expected.
Yeah, you're getting all kinds of explanation for that. Some people even think this change in the way the clock works is shortening the length of games. I don't know if you can make that argument. I can definitely see where if Arkansas had, a few more minutes in that game, especially that last drive, they'd like to have that. But is the fewer you're having fewer plays in a game, is that causing the SEC to have problems? I don't think so. Maybe it's just a weird thing that's going on right now. Maybe it turns around this week and next week and the week after. I don't know. But right now, when you look at Alabama, I just can't believe what I'm looking at. That doesn't even look like an Alabama team. And even Georgia was rolling, and then all of a sudden they're struggling against South Carolina. Which A&M team are we going to see in 2 weeks? Which LSU team are we going to see? So it just so far it's been up, down, back and forth.
BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online, where the game starts.